third paragraph. She didn't read it fully. She didn't need to. She could hear it between the lines already. Suspicion, innuendo, veiled racism wrapped in the language of public concern. A photo had been used too, one of her exiting the estate gates on foot, likely taken weeks ago. She looked tired in it. Of course she did. She took the paper inside, folded it carefully, and set it face down on the entryway table. Then she went to find Lucas. Lucas was in the study, sipping his coffee and scanning emails when she entered. He looked up immediately. "You saw it." "I did." He stood. "I'm sorry, Maya. I should have known they'd escalate." She crossed her arms, not angry, just tired. "Who leaked it?" "Someone at the Ames Foundation, most likely. It's coordinated. We've been flagged in a few social circles already, nothing official, just whispers, but this makes it public." She nodded slowly. "And the board?" "I called an emergency meeting. They're not pulling support yet, but they're spooked." She studied him for a moment. "You don't look spooked." "I'm not," Lucas said, voice steady. "I'm angry." She stepped forward. "I don't need you to fight my battles, Lucas." "I'm not. I'm fighting ours. Now." He picked up a thin folder from his desk and handed it to her. "Our response. A public letter. From both of us." Maya opened it and read the first lines aloud. "Transparency is not a scandal. Progress is not corruption. And power, when shared, does not lose its value. It multiplies it." She looked up, surprised. "You wrote this?" "I had help. Henry, actually. He said you'd never sign off unless you saw yourself in it." A small smile tugged at her lips. "He knows me well." Lucas walked over to the fireplace, leaning one hand on the mantel. "They're going to keep coming, Maya. You know that." She nodded. "Then let them come." Later that morning, Maya sat in her office, phone buzzing with notifications. Carla entered with a fresh cup of coffee and a pastry wrapped in a napkin. "You holding up?" Carla asked. "Barely. You want me to go yell at someone downtown? I'll do it. I'll wear my church heels and everything." Maya laughed. "No war crimes today, Carla. But thank you." Carla sat on the edge of the desk. "You knew this would happen, didn't you?" "I did. I just didn't know it would feel like this." Carla softened. "You're not just some name they can chew up and spit out, Maya. You're proof that the old rules don't hold." Maya looked down at the folded newspaper on the desk. "Sometimes I wonder if I should have stayed quiet, let it be a job, not a movement." "Too late for that," Carla said gently. "You made us believe we could stand taller. You don't get to unring that bell." By afternoon, the estate was receiving emails of support from former employees, neighbors, even a couple of teachers from Joshua's school. Some simply wrote, "I see her. I believe her. I'm glad she stayed." Maya read each one slowly, tears she didn't mean to shed running unchecked down her cheek. That evening, Lucas held a press conference in the estate garden. Only a few reporters showed up in person, but the live stream gathered more than 20,000 viewers in the first hour. Maya stood beside him, not behind. Lucas began. "This estate has stood for generations, through wars, losses, and social shifts, but nothing has threatened it more than silence. Silence about who we are, about who we owe our success to. That ends now." He motioned toward Maya. "This is Maya Williams. She helped rebuild this house, not with drywall or paint, but with truth, discipline, compassion, and integrity. She has earned every role she's taken here, not through favor, but through fire." Maya stepped forward. She didn't speak from a podium. She simply looked into the camera and said, "You don't need to believe in me, but believe in the people who clean your floors, raise your children, prepare your food. Because when you dismiss them, you dismiss the foundation you're standing on." The stream ended with applause, quiet at first, then growing. Back in the house, Henry placed a copy of the newspaper next to Maya's earlier stack of staff portraits. Then, without a word, he tore the front page in half, folded it backward, and slid it underneath Maya's framed quote, "We all deserve air. No one should have to ask for it. Let them write what they want," he said. "This house remembers better." The weather shifted overnight. The sky turned steel gray, and a cold drizzle settled in a soft, persistent rain that blanketed the Harding estate in hushed tones. Maya woke before sunrise, the sound of water tapping against the window like an old clock ticking. There was a heaviness in the air, not just from the weather, but something else. By 8 a.m., Lucas summoned her to the study. He was sitting at the desk, unusually quiet, a sealed manila envelope in front of him. His hair was still damp from the rain, a thin line of weariness carved beneath his eyes. "You all right?" Maya asked gently. Lucas nodded once. "I need to show you something." She sat across from him, and he slid the envelope toward her. "I found this in one of the cabinets in Eleanor's old quarters," he said. "It's my mother's original will, not the updated one the board used after her death." Maya stilled. "What does it say?" He leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. "It names me, of course. But more importantly, it references a trust. A quiet one. For the staff." Maya blinked. "A trust?" Lucas nodded. "She left instructions to create a long-term wellness and education fund for anyone who had served more than 5 years under this roof. She named Henry, Janet, Rosa, even people who'd retired." Maya stared at the envelope. "Why didn't anyone know about this?" "Because Eleanor suppressed it," he said bitterly. "She filed the revised version to the board, one that stripped all mention of the staff and consolidated the assets. Probably told herself it was better for the estate. More controlled." Maya's hands curled into fists in her lap. "She stole their futures." "She did," Lucas said. "And I'm going to fix it." He opened a drawer, pulled out a legal pad with handwritten notes. "I've already contacted my attorney. We're establishing the fund exactly as my mother outlined. Retroactively." Maya felt her chest tighten. "They have no idea what this means for their families." "They will." Lucas looked at her now, eyes sharp but filled with emotion. "I need you to help me tell them. This isn't just a press move or a compensation plan. It's a legacy correction." She nodded slowly. "It's justice." By late afternoon, Maya gathered the senior staff in the East Parlor. Henry, Carla, Janet, and a few others sat around, confused but calm. Rain tapped against the tall windows. Lucas entered quietly behind her. Maya cleared her throat. "We found something that belonged to Lucas's mother." She looked toward Lucas. He stepped forward, holding the original will. "This document," he began, "should have been shared years ago. It was written with the intent to honor those who built this house with their hands, their backs, and their time." He paused. "My mother believed the staff should share in the estate's growth. She set aside funds to ensure your children could go to school, your medical bills wouldn't crush you, and your retirement wouldn't feel like exile." Silence fell over the room. Henry rubbed at his eyes. Carla whispered, "Lord have mercy." Janet sat perfectly still. "She saw us, even when no one else did." Maya smiled. "She saw you, and now everyone will." Lucas continued. "Each of you who served more than 5 years will receive a formal letter detailing the trust's distributions, education grants, wellness coverage, housing assistance if needed. This is not charity. This is overdue." A long pause. Then Henry, voice cracking, said, "If I'd known this was waiting for us all along." "You would have stayed?" Lucas asked. "No," Henry said, shaking his head. "I would have believed more, believed we mattered." After the meeting, Maya stood alone in the empty parlor, hand resting on the mantel. It felt surreal. Justice rarely arrived in neat envelopes, and when it did, it was almost always too late. But not this time. Lucas walked in and stood beside her, eyes on the fire. "She wrote it because she knew I might forget," he said, "that if I didn't have something in writing, I'd get lost in the noise." "You didn't forget," Maya said. "I almost did," he replied, "until you reminded me how to listen again." They stood in silence, the flames casting golden light on the framed photos lining the wall. Maya turned to him. "So what now?" "Now we rebuild the board, shift the power, protect the people who protect this house." "And what about your name?" she asked softly. "Your legacy?" Lucas glanced at her. "My legacy is what they carry when I'm gone, not what's written in stone, what's lived." That evening, Carla found Maya in the kitchen, leaning over the stove where a pot of soup simmered gently. "You okay?" Carla asked. Maya looked up. Her face was softer, a little stunned. "I think I'm finally catching up with myself," Carla chuckled. "You ever gonna put your picture up on that wall?" Maya smirked. "Maybe when I'm done earning it." Carla waved her hand. "Girl, please, You already earned it twice over. She stirred the pot, then added, You know what this reminds me of? My mama used to say justice doesn't always knock loud. Sometimes it's just soup on the stove, and people finally sitting at the same table. Maya smiled. Then we should serve them well. The conference room on the 34th floor of the Harding Global downtown office had once been Lucas's battlefield. Polished wood, clean lines, the skyline of Manhattan on display through floor-to-ceiling windows. It was a room designed to intimidate. But today, it was not the height of the building or the shine of the table that commanded the room. It was Maya Williams, seated calmly beside Lucas, her name now etched into the plaque before her. Maya Williams, co-chair. The board members shuffled in slowly, stiff collars and colder eyes. Most were older, gray-haired, legacy men and women who had dined with his parents, voted on generations of Harding decisions. A few nodded to Maya, but most ignored her entirely. She didn't flinch. Lucas stood, buttoning his jacket with care. Thank you all for joining on short notice. We have 2 items to address. One is financial. The other, moral. He let that word hang in the air. Board Chairwoman Margaret Ellison adjusted her glasses. We've reviewed the article, Lucas. Damage control is underway. I'm not here for damage control, he replied, voice clipped. I'm here for truth correction. A murmur rippled across the table. Lucas continued. For the last few decades, this board has treated Harding Global and the estate as separate empires. But they're not. What happens in that house echoes in every donation, every PR campaign, every community event with our name on it. He reached into a folder and pulled out a copy of his mother's original will. This document was concealed, knowingly, its contents erased from the revised version you all approved years ago. Ellison narrowed her eyes. That's a serious accusation. It's not an accusation, Maya said, speaking for the first time. It's a fact. Several heads turned toward her, startled at her interruption. She leaned forward, calm but firm. This will include a mandate, a trust for the estate staff, a redistribution of wealth based on service, not blood. It was Eleanor Harding who removed it. And you, knowingly or not, endorsed that removal. A heavy silence fell. One board member, Mr. Callahan, cleared his throat. Let's assume, for argument's sake, this is true. What do you propose? Lucas stepped in. We reinstate the Harding Staff Trust Fund, retroactively, fully funded. We publicly acknowledge the mistake. Ellison scoffed. Do you understand what that will do to our standing with our legacy donors? Maya looked her dead in the eyes. If your donors pull funding because the staff was finally treated like human beings, then maybe they shouldn't have their names on your buildings. Ellison opened her mouth, but Lucas cut in. She's right. We don't need investors who flinch at decency. And let me be clear, if the board votes against this motion, I will dissolve Harding Global as it stands. I will walk away from the name, the title, the inheritance. We will start again, and the public will know why. Gasps, sharp inhales, panic, thinly veiled. Maya watched as their carefully constructed control unraveled, not with shouting, but with choice. Lucas sat down again. So, let's vote. The final tally, 7 inches favor, 4 opposed, 2 abstaining. The motion passed. Maya's hands were steady as she gathered her notes. Beside her, Lucas closed his folder with quiet satisfaction. As the room began to clear, one board member, a woman in her 60s named Lorraine Beckett, paused by Maya's chair. I didn't vote for you, she said, but I was wrong. You remind me of someone I worked for once years ago. She got fired for being too honest. Maya nodded. Then I hope she's proud of you for staying in the room this time. Lorraine blinked, smiled faintly, and walked away. In the elevator ride down, Maya exhaled for the first time in hours. Lucas leaned against the back wall, staring at her. What? She asked. He shook his head, smiling. You were terrifying. She laughed, soft but real. So were you. No, he said. I was angry. You were unstoppable. Maya shrugged. We're not done. You know that. Not even close, he said. Back at the estate, Carla had baked a peach cobbler, her stress ritual of choice, and the sweet smell filled the kitchen. How'd it go? She asked, sliding a warm slice onto a plate for Maya. We won, Maya said. Carla stared at her. Like, really? Trust is reinstated. Lucas put his entire inheritance on the line. Carla blinked, then muttered, I guess we're not in the servants' quarters anymore. Maya laughed, then grew quiet. I don't know how to exist like this. You'll learn, Carla said. Just don't forget how to exist like that. She pointed toward the window, where the garden shimmered in the post. Rain. Sunday. Maya looked, her expression softening. I won't. That night, she wandered through the house barefoot, letting her fingers trail across the banister, the stone, the polished wood. She paused in front of her portrait now framed beside Henry's, Carla's, and Janet's. The quote beneath her face read, Power is not what you inherit. It's what you survive. She whispered to the stillness. We're still here. And this time, the house seemed to answer back, not with silence but with belonging. The marble floor of the foyer was slick with rainwater. Maya stood near the grand staircase, clutching an umbrella and watching Carla chase muddy footprints with a mop. The summer storm had blown in quick and loud, soaking the gardens and knocking out the estate's front security gate system. Henry's resetting the power, Carla said, not looking up. Damn gate's older than the fireplace. Maya nodded, distracted. She wasn't thinking about the gate or the mud. Her mind was on a voicemail she'd received just an hour ago. It was from Detective Selena Voss. We've received new information regarding Eleanor Harding's estate filings. There's an irregularity. I think you'll want to hear this in person. By noon, Maya and Lucas were seated in the detective's small office downtown. Rain dotted the window like static. Voss didn't waste time with pleasantries. This was brought to my attention by a former Harding estate accountant. He recently retired and cleaned out an old safe deposit box. Inside, he found a ledger, a private one. Lucas leaned forward. Private? It tracks off the books, expenses, payouts, legal donations. Voss slid the copy across the desk. This ledger confirms what we suspected about Eleanor's control over staff finances, but it also goes further. Much further. Maya's eyes moved down the column of handwritten entries. There were familiar names, Janet, Rosa, even Henry. But then one entry stopped her cold. The 12th of March, 2017. $40,000. Staff settlement. Maya W. Note. Silence clause signed. She blinked. Lucas read it aloud. That's impossible. I've never signed anything like that, Maya said, her voice sharp, and I certainly didn't receive any payment. Voss nodded. That's why this matters. This payment exists on paper only. Maya stared at her. You're saying it was forged? Voss leaned back. I'm saying it was likely used as justification on paper to block future promotions. Possibly to discredit you internally if needed. It paints you as someone who settled, quietly. Lucas's fists clenched, and if anyone tried to stand up for her, that entry would be all they needed to shut it down. Maya felt her chest tighten. She planned the erasure in advance. Voss nodded. She buried you in a lie before you even had a chance to rise. Back at the estate, thunder cracked as they arrived. Maya moved like a ghost through the halls, memories crawling up her spine. Every conversation with Eleanor now echoed differently. Every cold glance, every subtle dismissal, it had all been planned. Not just resistance, sabotage. Lucas followed close behind. We'll go public. Maya stopped at the foot of the staircase. No. No? She turned slowly. If we go public now, it'll be about revenge. I don't want revenge, Lucas. I want reclamation. He tilted his head. So what do you suggest? We show them the truth. But not with headlines. With history. With her own words. She walked briskly toward the library. Lucas trailed behind, still confused. What are we looking for? He asked. Her journals. Her letters. There were hundreds. She used to write obsessively. No. But most of them were destroyed. No, Maya said, pulling a small brass key from her pocket. Most of them were hidden. She led him to a concealed cabinet behind the wall-length bookshelf. She'd discovered it months ago while cleaning but hadn't known the key's purpose until now. Inside, stacked neatly and tied with silk ribbons, were over 40 leather-bound journals, Eleanor's personal writings, stretching back decades. Maya held one out. If there's any truth left in this house, it's in here. They read for hours, side by side on the library floor, lightning flashing outside. The words were cold, calculated, and cruel at times, but they also revealed something Maya hadn't expected. Fear. Eleanor feared the estate slipping from her control, feared Lucas becoming soft, feared Maya, though not for her color or class, but for her clarity. One passage stood out. Maya Williams watches everything. Reminds me of Margaret, before she left. There's steel in that girl. I see it in her silences. She's the kind you can't own, you can only delay. Lucas closed the journal softly. She was afraid of you, he said. Maya stared at the fire, her face unreadable. No, she murmured. She was afraid of being forgotten. That night, Maya gathered the staff in the garden, under the old oak tree. The rain had stopped. The ground was soft, but the air was clear. She held Eleanor's journal in one hand and the ledger in the other. I found something today, she said, voice calm but resonant. Something that tried to rewrite my story before I'd even had a chance to live it. She looked around at the faces she knew so well. Henry, Carla, Janet, Rosa, and the newer hires who still watched her with quiet reverence. I won't let anyone decide what I stood for. She held up the journal. Her voice, her fear, her control, it stops here. Then she placed the ledger into the fire pit and struck a match. The flames curled upward, devouring the paper. No spectacle, no vengeance, just fire, clean and final. Lucas stepped beside her. What about the rest? Maya looked up at the oak's towering branches. We'll keep the truth, and we'll tell it, but on our terms, slowly, steadily, as long as this house stands. As the flames faded, the wind picked up gently, scattering ash into the dark sky, and Maya stood at the center of it all, not as a survivor, but as the storm itself. The hallway outside the East Wing nursery was dim and quiet, lit only by the pale morning sun filtering through linen curtains. Maya walked slowly, barefoot, a coffee mug in her hands and her thoughts far away. After the fire, after the journals, after the ledger, it seemed the house had finally exhaled. But silence, she was learning, didn't always mean peace. As she passed the tall mirror near the nursery entrance, a small sound caught her attention. A shuffle, a whimper. She paused. Turning, she caught sight of a tiny shadow ducking into the corner near the old service door, barely 3 feet tall. Hello? She said softly. No answer. She stepped closer, crouching low. You don't have to hide. The figure emerged, a boy, curly-haired, about 5 years old, in a dinosaur t-shirt 2 sizes too big. His cheeks were damp, and he clutched a crumpled drawing in his tiny hand. Maya's heart jumped. Hi, she said gently. Are you lost? He sniffled, held out the paper. It was a crayon drawing 2 stick figures holding hands under a big sundae. One wore a green dress, the other had orange hair. She recognized the drawing. It was from a folder she'd seen in Lucas's office. Drawn by a child named Daniel, one of the children from the Harding Foundation's foster transition program. She crouched lower. Is your name Daniel? The boy nodded, rubbing his eyes. Where's your caretaker? He pointed down the hallway. Sleeping, loud. Maya stifled a smile. That happens. He shifted closer, still clinging to the drawing. You're the nice lady. She blinked. Have we met? No, Daniel whispered, but they said you fixed the house. Lucas found them in the sunroom 30 minutes later. Daniel curled in Maya's lap, still holding his picture. Maya was telling a story about a giraffe who wanted to fly. Lucas froze in the doorway. You found him, he said. Maya looked up. He was hiding by the service door. Said his caretaker's snoring scared him. Lucas chuckled and stepped forward. I should have warned you, he's got a habit of escaping naps. He also has a habit of drawing sunshine, she added, showing Lucas the crumpled page. Lucas softened. He's been through a lot. His mother passed last year. His father wasn't safe. Maya nodded slowly. And now he's here. Lucas crouched beside her. Temporarily. But the foundation is trying to expand. Build a proper child transition wing. Daniel might be the first of many. Maya looked at the boy, sleeping now with his head against her chest. He thought I fixed the house. You did. No, she said, brushing a curl from Daniel's forehead. He might. That evening, They gathered in the parlor for a small meeting with the Foundation's Board of Educators and Community Liaisons. Maya sat beside Lucas, but this time she wasn't just attending, she was leading. "We've cleared the east wing," she began. "We'll convert the guest rooms into long-term suites. Create a space for kids in transition. Not just housing, but stability. Healing." A woman from Child Services raised a brow. "You're housing foster children at Harding Estate?" "Yes," Maya said firmly. "Children who have no other place to go." Another voice, skeptical. "It's not exactly standard protocol." Maya smiled. "Neither was I." Lucas spoke next. "The estate has the room, the resources, the structure. What it lacked was the will to see beyond legacy. That changes now." There were murmurs, concern, surprise, but no strong resistance. Because the world was watching now, and even those who preferred silence couldn't deny what they saw. Late that night, Maya stood in the east wing, now cleaned and quiet. The old guest rooms had already been stripped down to basics: beds, warm lighting, a bookshelf, fresh linens. Daniel was the first, but not the last. She opened the window to let in the night air. Behind her, Lucas leaned against the doorframe. "You okay?" She nodded. "I used to dream about escaping this house." "Huh. And now?" "Now I dream about what it can become." Lucas stepped beside her. "You remember what you told me once? That justice isn't about revenge, it's about reclamation?" She nodded. He smiled. "Then this is justice." She looked out over the grounds, her gaze steady, her heart full. "We're just getting started." That weekend, the staff gathered for the first Harding Estate family dinner. No uniforms, no assigned seating, just food and music and long conversations. Daniel sat between Rosa and Henry, babbling about flying giraffes. When dessert was served, Carla stood and tapped her glass. "I got a toast," she announced. "To Maya Williams, our storm, our steel, our sister. You walked into this house and shook it down to its bones. You stood taller than they ever expected. And now, you're building something even bigger." Maya stood, blinking back tears. She raised her glass. "To the ones who stayed," and the room echoed back, "To the ones who stayed." Ugh. It was just past dawn when Maya stepped out into the garden, the dew still clinging to the grass like silver lace. A light fog hung low over the hedges, wrapping the world in a gentle silence. She walked barefoot along the gravel path, her robe pulled tight against the cool morning air, her thoughts drifting to the journal entries still laid out on her nightstand. Eleanor's words, sharp, calculated, often cruel but occasionally, jarringly human. She'd spent the previous night reading one entry over and over. "I fear what Maya could become, not because she is wrong, but because she reminds me of the version of myself I killed to fit into this life." The sentence haunted her, not because it was flattering, but because it felt like a confession, not of guilt, but of defeat. At the edge of the garden, beneath the ancient fig tree, Maya paused. There was a marble bench there, Eleanor's favorite spot, and for the first time, Maya saw not the ghost of a tyrant, but of a woman broken by the machinery she helped preserve. She sat, her hand resting on the cold marble. "I'm not here to curse you," she whispered, "but I won't protect your silence anymore." Behind her, the soft creak of footsteps approached. "Lucas," he held out a steaming mug. "Carla sent this, said you'd be out here trying to haunt ghosts." Maya took the cup with a smile. "She's not wrong." Lucas sat beside her. "You found something in the journals, didn't you?" "Yes," she said. "I found out that Eleanor once believed in change, then buried that belief beneath fear." Lucas nodded slowly. "That sounds like her." Maya stared out at the trees, the sky just beginning to warm with light. "She feared me," Maya continued, "because I reminded her of the parts she lost, or maybe gave up." Lucas didn't reply at first. Then he asked, "Do you think that's what's waiting for me? That kind of fear?" She turned to him. "Only if you stop listening." He took a breath, long and slow. "I don't want to become what this house used to demand." "Then don't," she said gently. "You're not your mother. You're the one who let the doors open." He looked at her, his expression unreadable. "I didn't just open the doors, Maya. I walked through them because of you." Later that morning, the first children arrived. Not in a parade of fanfare, but in quiet cars with social workers and tired eyes. 3 boys and 2 girls, ages 6 to 12. Each carried a duffel bag or a small suitcase and wore the same wary expression. Maya knew too well the look of someone trained to expect temporary care and sudden rejection. The staff stood ready, Carla with a tray of warm cookies, Rosa holding juice boxes, Janet with soft blankets folded over her arms. Maya greeted each child by name, kneeling to meet their eyes, never towering, never judging. Lucas stayed near the back, his presence quiet but protective. When one of the girls, Lena, aged 9, shied away from entering the room, Maya extended her hand without pressure. "You don't have to come in," she said. "But if you want to, there's a room with your name on the door, and it has a bookshelf taller than me." Lena looked past her, then back. Slowly, she reached for Maya's hand. Inside, the children were given rooms, not dorms. They were offered routines, not rules. And perhaps most importantly, they were offered dignity without needing to earn it. By evening, laughter returned to the East Wing for the first time in decades. That night, Lucas hosted a dinner for foundation donors in the estate ballroom. It was Maya's idea to move the event from the city to the house itself. "Let them see what they're supporting," she'd said. The guests came in expensive suits, curious and cautious. They were greeted not by a butler, but by Carla, who gave every person the same look that said, "Behave yourself. This is holy ground now." Maya wore navy blue, not a dress meant to impress, but one meant to belong. She moved through the room with quiet command. During the dinner, Lucas stood and raised his glass. "This house has always been about legacy," he began. But for too long, legacy was defined by inheritance, wealth, bloodlines. He glanced at Maya across the room. "Today, we define it differently. Legacy is not what you build for yourself, but what you build for others, especially when no one is watching." He lifted his glass higher. "To the unseen, the unheard, the unstoppable." "To Maya," someone murmured, and then others echoed it. "To Maya." She stood slowly, stunned, but instead of basking in it, she raised her own glass. "To the ones who cleaned this house when no one clapped. To the ones who stayed when it wasn't safe. To the kids learning to trust again. This is the legacy." The room went quiet, then erupted in applause. Not polite, not performative, but real. Later that night, Lucas found her on the upstairs balcony, barefoot, arms resting on the iron rail. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. I'm full." Like when the day finally stopped spinning. He stepped beside her. Below, the estate glowed warm in the darkness, soft lamps in windows, shadows moving gently through hallways, music still echoing faintly from the ballroom. "You remember when you first got here?" he asked. Maya smirked. "Which time? When I was scrubbing the baseboards, or when you thought I stole the porcelain vase?" He laughed. "Both." "I remember," she said, quieter now. "I remember thinking I'd never be anything but invisible here." Lucas turned to face her fully. "And now?" She looked up at the stars, clear and stubborn above the old house. "Now I'm the part they'll never forget." The night sky was velvet and deep, the kind of darkness that didn't frighten Maya anymore. From her bedroom window, she could see the west wing, once closed, shuttered, and filled with relics of control, now glowing faintly with new life. Children's laughter had woven itself into the walls. It was a different kind of music than the house had ever known. But peace, she was learning, was never permanent. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Maya Williams?" The voice was calm, clipped, professional. "Yes. Who's this?" "My name is Agent Claire Dennison. I'm with the Department of Justice. We need to speak. Privately." They met the next morning in a quiet federal building on the outskirts of the city. The conference room was bare, no windows, just neutral walls and steel chairs. Agent Dennison slid a file across the table. "What you're about to see is sensitive. We believe you may be a key witness in an investigation involving fraudulent financial practices tied to the Harding Foundation dating back more than 10 years. Maya felt a chill crawl up her spine. "I don't understand. The board just approved the trust fund. Everything's being corrected." Dennison tapped the file. "That's the surface. What's underneath is bigger. Offshore accounts, shell charities, money that disappeared from foundation grants, especially those meant for underserved communities." Maya opened the folder and gasped. A list of names, most of them unfamiliar, but two stood out. Eleanor Harding, Margaret Ellison, and under both, signatures authorizing distributions to non-existent projects in Appalachia and rural Louisiana. She looked up. I had no idea. Dennison nodded. We don't think Lucas did either. But Eleanor's influence didn't end when she died. Her legacy of control left landmines. Why me? Maya asked. Why am I a witness? Dennison looked her square in the eye. Because you're the only one who challenged the structure. And because your promotion forced several board members to panic. One of them came to us. With documents. Maya's throat went dry. Who? Dennison didn't answer. Instead, she pulled out a photo. It was a security camera still. Maya recognized the hallway instantly. It was the estate. The timestamp was 3 nights ago. The image showed a shadowed figure slipping into the West Wing office after hours. The label below the image, Janet E. Carter. Maya stared at it in disbelief. Janet? No. That's not possible. Dennison was firm. We believe she accessed records stored during Eleanor's time. Possibly under duress. Possibly to protect herself. Either way, she's at the center now. Back at the estate, Maya walked the long hallway to the laundry room, where Janet was folding linens like it was any other day. Her movements were calm, her posture perfect as it had always been. Janet, Maya said quietly. The woman looked up, her face unreadable. We need to talk. Janet paused, folded one last towel, then set it down. I figured this day might come, she said. I just didn't expect you to be the one holding the match. I'm not here to burn you, Maya said. But I need the truth. Janet sat slowly, smoothing her apron. I started working here when I was 23. Back then, Eleanor ran the place like a fortress. I did what I had to do to survive. That meant looking away, signing things I didn't understand, saying yes, ma'am, when I wanted to scream. Maya listened, her jaw tense. When you came, Janet continued, I saw what could change, but I also saw what it would cost. Eleanor might be dead, but her rules, still breathing. Mal, you went into the office, Maya said. I did, Janet admitted, but not to steal, to bury something I should have burned years ago. She opened a drawer nearby and pulled out a sealed envelope. This is the last of it. Letters between Eleanor and Ellison. Proof of how they funneled grant money into their personal portfolios. I didn't want to believe it, but there it is. Maya took the envelope. Why didn't you come forward sooner? Janet's eyes welled with tears. Because I thought protecting the house meant hiding the shame, but you're showing us another way. Maya softened. It's not too late. Janet stood. Then take it. And do what I was too afraid to do. That evening, Lucas joined Maya on the terrace overlooking the East Garden. She told him everything. The DOJ investigation, Janet's confession, the buried documents. He sat quietly, absorbing the truth. Then he nodded. We'll cooperate. Fully. Whatever they need. Maya looked at him surprised. You're not angry? I'm tired of pretending this house didn't grow out of rot, he said. Let them tear out the roots if they have to. What we build next, it'll be cleaner. He reached for her hand, warm and steady. You okay? He asked. Maya stared at the moon rising above the treetops. No, but I'm ready. The following morning, Maya stood before the staff once more this time, not with hope in her voice, but truth. There's an investigation, she began, and some of the people we trusted made decisions that betrayed that trust. But we are not that betrayal. We are the ones who stayed, who kept the lights on, who raised each other. She looked at Janet, who stood at the back with her chin high. We don't have to carry the sins of this house any longer. Silence. Then Carla stepped forward and said, Then let's build something that doesn't need secrets. And one by one, they nodded. Later that night, alone in her room, Maya lit a candle and opened one of Eleanor's last journals. The pages crackled. The final entry read, If the house ever learns to love again, it will be because someone taught it how. Maya closed the book and smiled. The courthouse downtown buzzed with reporters, their cameras aimed like weapons. Headlines had already filled the morning papers. Harding Foundation under federal investigation, a billionaire's house of lies. From maid to whistleblower, Maya Williams speaks out. But inside, the courtroom was silent. Maya sat near the front, flanked by Lucas on one side and Agent Dennison on the other. Janet sat quietly behind her, no longer hiding, no longer afraid. Her back was straight, and in her eyes was something Maya hadn't seen in her before: resolve. The prosecutor, a lean, focused woman named Carla Mendez, stood before the judge. "Your Honor," she began, "what we are dealing with is not simply embezzlement. It is the systemic manipulation of charitable funds by a powerful family over a decade or more. These funds were meant for children, for communities, for those without a voice. And instead, they were redirected to private accounts. The paper trail was intentionally buried until now." She glanced back at Maya, offering a small nod. During recess, Maya stepped out into the hallway to breathe. The building was old, with heavy marble columns and drafty corridors. Her heels echoed across the floor, but her thoughts were far louder. Lucas followed. "They're painting you like a hero," he said. "I'm not," she replied. "I'm a witness, a survivor, not a saint." He leaned on the wall beside her. "Maybe, but you're the reason the story didn't end in silence." She turned toward him. "You know what scares me most?" "What?" "That when this is over, people will think the house is clean. That because we burned the ledgers and turned over documents, everything is fixed." Lucas nodded slowly. "But it's not." "No," she said. "Not yet. Healing isn't the same as justice. It's messier, longer." Inside the courtroom, Janet was called to testify. She walked to the stand with her hands steady, voice clear. "I was a housekeeper at the Harding estate for over 25 years. I cleaned the rooms where secrets were made. I signed documents I didn't understand, because I believed my job was survival, not truth. But watching Maya, I realized silence was betrayal." The room held its breath. "I stand here today not because I was brave," she continued, "but because someone else showed me how to be." When she stepped down, she passed Maya and whispered, "Thank you." Maya only squeezed her hand. The trial took 5 days. The defense tried to deflect, claimed Eleanor was dead, that the records were incomplete, that Maya's promotion was motivated by money. But the facts didn't bend, not this time. In the end, the judge ruled. Restitution to be paid by the remaining Harding family trust. Foundation control transferred to an independent ethical board. A formal apology issued to all misused grant recipients. And most critically, full legal exoneration and recognition for Maya Williams as a protected whistleblower. The court erupted in murmurs. Lucas reached for her hand. "You did it," he said. But Maya shook her head. "We did it." The press hounded her for days. News vans outside the estate. Interview requests. Editorials. TV appearances. She declined all of them. Instead, she focused on the East Wing, on Daniel, who was learning to play piano, and Lena, who had started painting flowers in every room she entered. She cleaned the kitchen on Sundays, sat in the garden with Janet on Wednesdays, and met with the new ethics board every Friday. The house was still old, still flawed, but it was changing, and it remembered now not the legacy of silence, but the sound of voices rising. One afternoon, Maya visited her old room, the one off the servants' hallway, with the small window and the creaky floorboards. She found a notebook tucked in the drawer, one she hadn't opened in years. Inside were journal entries she'd written during her first weeks at the estate. "I don't belong here. They don't see me. I miss my mother. I miss being seen." She closed the book and whispered to her past self, "We made it." Then she walked out and didn't look back. That weekend, the Harding estate held its first open day, a community celebration with music, food, tours, and workshops for local families. Former staff came back as guests. Foundation children played tag on the lawn. Carla flipped burgers. Henry ran a gardening demo. Rosa taught kids how to bake cornbread. Maya stood near the edge of it all, a lemonade in her hand, watching. Lucas approached, holding a picnic basket. "There's a rumor going around," he said. "Oh," she smirked. "That you're thinking of starting your own foundation." "Rumors spread fast," she replied. He offered her a folder. Inside, a proposal. A new trust. Her name on the masthead. The Williams House Project. She stared at it, quiet. "It's yours," he said. "Run it your way." She looked at the crowd, at the lives blooming where silence once lived, and she nodded. "It's time." And that night, as fireworks shimmered in the sky above the estate, Maya stood under the same oak tree where she'd once burned the ledger. This time, she wasn't alone. The staff stood around her, and the children held sparklers like tiny stars. She raised her voice. This house was built with secrets, but now, it's growing something else. She looked at Lucas, then at Daniel beside her. Truth, family, and a future none of us have to survive, we get to live it. The crowd erupted in applause, and someone passed her a sparkler. She held it up, and the house behind her, old, imperfect, and finally honest, glowed in the firelight. Autumn had arrived in New Haven. The Harding estate, once brooding and monolithic, now blushed with color ivy curling along the stone, leaves scattering across the front steps like a welcome mat from nature itself. The trees whispered in golds and reds. The air held the bite of something ending and something beginning. Inside the east wing, laughter echoed. Children chased one another through the halls, their shoes tapping joy into the floorboards. Rosa handed out pumpkin muffins wrapped in parchment. Janet was decorating the common room with hand-painted signs that read things like, "You belong here and this house sees you." In the study, Lucas and Maya sat across from each other, no suits, no titles, just worn flannel and the shared silence of two people who had weathered a storm together. "You sure you want to do this?" Lucas asked, holding out a manila folder. She nodded. "It's time." The folder contained the final deed transfer. The Harding estate, long guarded by bloodlines and legacy, would now become the permanent headquarters of the Williams House Project, an educational and transitional sanctuary for children in foster care, displaced families, and young adults aging out of the system. Maya had refused to name it after herself, but the board insisted. "You were the fire that woke this place up," Carla had said. "Let it carry your name so others know they can burn through lies too." Lucas signed first, then Maya, and in that moment, the house was reborn. Not inherited, earned. The ceremony was small. No press, no photographers, just staff, children, friends, and neighbors. It was held beneath the old oak tree, the same one where Maya once stood in the rain, accused and broken. Now, she stood there as the founder of something that would outlive them all. Janet spoke first. "For 25 years, I served this house like a loyal ghost," she said, "but it took Maya to remind me that loyalty doesn't mean silence, and that ghosts don't raise children, people do." Then Carla, "This is more than a home. It's a declaration that no child is disposable, that no worker is invisible. That legacy isn't built in silence, it's built in sweat, in stories, and in the courage to tell the truth out loud." Finally, Lucas stepped forward. "I grew up in a house full of rules and reputation. But Maya taught me that real power isn't who sits at the head of the table, it's who makes sure everyone has a seat at it." Then he looked at her. "And today, we pass the house to the one who truly made it a home." Maya stepped up to the makeshift podium. A breeze lifted her hair. She wasn't shaking. Not anymore. "I was once the maid who mopped this floor, the girl who ate dinner on the steps, the woman they told to keep quiet, keep low, keep out of the way." She paused, but I listened to my own voice instead. I listened to the children who had none. I listened to the cracks in the walls, to the stories buried in ledgers and linen closets. And I chose not to be silent. "Nah." She scanned the faces before her, Rosa smiling, Henry wiping away a tear, little Daniel holding Lena's hand. "This isn't just my story," Maya continued. "It's ours. And it doesn't end here. It grows. Every time someone walks through these doors and hears a yes instead of a you can't. Every time a child is believed. Every time truth is louder than fear." She raised her hand. "To justice without revenge, to family without condition, and to the light that stayed." They echoed her. To the light that stayed. And for the first time in decades, the house didn't feel haunted. It felt whole. That evening, after the crowd had gone and the children were tucked in, Maya walked alone through the hallways. She passed the grand staircase, the parlor, the old study where she'd once been accused of theft. Each room felt like a chapter she had finished writing. In the library, the journals still sat on the shelf, Eleanor's words, untouched since the trial. Maya didn't hate her anymore. She simply understood. Fear had made Eleanor a warden, but Maya had chosen to become a gardener. And this house? It had bloomed. She stepped outside to the back porch, where Lucas was waiting with 2 mugs of cider. "You think it'll last?" he asked. Maya looked up at the stars. "No," she said softly. "But we'll fight for it anyway." He handed her a mug. "Then let's keep building." They clinked their mugs together. Below them, the estate glowed warm light in every window, soft music from the nursery, and laughter from the kitchen. The kind of light that doesn't demand attention. It just stays. The story